What is good and welcome to Chatwin Reacts. I'm Jack, your British goat, and today we're going to be reacting to how every team got its name and identity in the NBA. We did a video on the NFL, kind of how their team names evolved over the years, where the teams moved to, etc. So let's hope the NBA one's just as interesting, because I did enjoy that video. Well, it was a rather long one, but I enjoyed it. As always, 3 things we'll do before I press play. Number 1, you go down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date to all of my videos, and of course, put a goat in the goat chain. You done it? You ready? Let's go.
Did you know that the NBA was founded to fill the seats in hockey arenas? Or that the Miami Heat could have been called the Miami Suntans? Why is Philadelphia's team called the Sixers?
Wasn't.
And what is a Knickerbocker?
I am a Sixers
fan.
This
is how every NBA team got their name. There are only 2 NBA franchises that have existed since 1946 and never changed their address or their nickname. The first is the Boston Celtics, formed on June 6, 1946 as one of the 11 teams in the...
well, I was about to say I couldn't think of who else it would be. I was going to try and guess, but...
The newly established Basketball Association of America. The BAA formation only came true because of Walter Brown, the owner of the Boston Garden. Brown realized that the Garden's ice hockey arena sat empty on many nights, and that it could be profitable to host basketball games. So he called up the other arena owners, and they formed the BAA. Brown had the league, he had the arena, the only thing missing was the team name. His staff proposed many different nicknames, such as Olympians, Whirlwinds, and even Unicorns. But Walter didn't like any of those names. Instead, he decided to call his team Celtics, drawing inspiration from the New York Celtics, a basketball team that dominated in the 1920s with a 90% win ratio. Even though his advisors warned him about having an Irish name, Brown was adamant, and the name stuck forever.
I think it's a very
other original NBA
name.
organization that never relocated and never changed its nickname was also formed on June 6, 1946. Like Walter Brown, who owned the Boston Garden, Ned Irish was the owner of the Madison Square Garden, and he was also interested in packing his arena when there wasn't any hockey. So, just like Brown, Irish also gathered the members of his staff to cast their vote on a team name. They put all the suggestions in a hat, and the name drawn out was the Knickerbockers. The Knickerbocker was the name of the original Dutch settlers of the area that later became New York, and later Knickerbockers became the moniker of New Yorkers in general. Immediately in their inaugural season, the Knickerbockers got shortened to Knicks, even though the official long version remains to this day. And for many decades, despite some horrible seasons, the Knicks were the most valuable NBA franchise. But since 2022, that title belongs to the Warriors, who were also one of the OG teams from 1946. The Warriors were founded in Philadelphia by Peter Tyrell, who also owned the Philadelphia Rockets of the American Hockey League. Tyrell then hired Eddie Gottlieb as coach and general manager. And since 1917, Gottlieb was Philadelphia's Mr. Basketball, a longtime promoter and team owner. Gottlieb's first team was named the Philadelphia Warriors, and after they went bankrupt in 1929, he simply decided to resurrect the name. In 1962, the franchise relocated to California, but they retained the nickname, becoming the San Francisco Warriors. They used that name until 1971 when they moved to Oakland, finally becoming the Golden State Warriors. And the Warriors' division arch rival shares a similar history. In 1948, the Lakers were actually founded in Minneapolis, and their name was selected because Minnesota was known as the land of 10,000 lakes. The Lakers won 5 titles in Minneapolis, and when they relocated to Los Angeles in 1960, they decided to keep the name because of its rich championship history. But the Lakers and the Warriors...
See, I again, wouldn't have known that, and I just thought LA Lakers just sounded really cool, I can't lie, so... Just worked out well.
They're not the only Californian teams with the longest history. That title belongs to the Sacramento Kings, whose first iteration is over 100 years old. Formed back in 1923, they were originally known as the Rochester Seagrams, until in 1945 they became the Rochester Royals, playing in the NBL, a rival league of the BAA. Then in 1948, the Royals transferred to the BAA, and a year later, 2 leagues merged into one, forming the NBA. The Royals remained in Rochester until 1957, when they moved to Cincinnati, and in 1972 they relocated again. They played in Kansas City and Omaha, becoming the first franchise to host their games in 2 cities. But because Kansas already had a baseball team named the Royals, to avoid confusion, they needed a new name. The franchise stuck with a regal nickname, finally becoming the Kings, a name they would keep when they relocated to Sacramento in 1985. And the next OG franchise is the one that dealt Shaq his biggest playoff loss. It's the Detroit Pistons, who first got their name in 1941. The team was founded in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as the Fort Wayne Zollner Pistons.
I'll say the one I'm most looking forward to trying to find out, I should say, is I did a reaction video and there was something to do with Shaq earlier. and there was a team called the Bullets. And in my head, I thought it was Detroit. I might be wrong. I know the Sonics are now Oklahoma City Thunder, but I didn't know who the Bullets were, and I thought it might have been the Pistons.
The franchise
But I
got its
think I
name
might be
from
wrong.
team owner Fred Zollner's Piston
Could it be the
Manufacturing Company.
Nuggets?
And before they joined the BAA in 1948,
They feel like
they
they've
won
been Pistons
2
the whole
NBL
time.
championships. Then, in 1957, when the team moved to Detroit, Zollner decided to shorten the team name to just Pistons, which was a suitable match for the Motor
I'm gonna
City.
go, it must
And
be the
in
Nuggets,
the
then.
inaugural NBA season 1949, another franchise with hockey roots joined the league. It was the Tri-Cities Blackhawks, who played in Moline, Illinois, adopting the same name as the local hockey
Who
team,
could
the
they be
Chicago
then?
Blackhawks.
Was it gonna be the
nickname
Bulls?
was chosen in honor of Indian Chief Black Hawk, who in the early 1800s occupied the land in the Chicago area. After relocating to Milwaukee in 1951,
Milwaukee
the team
Bucks.
shortened its title to Hawks, which
Atlanta
would
Hawks.
stay when they moved to St. Louis in 1955 and then finally to Atlanta in 1968.
I'm just
And
guessing
for the
now, aren't I?
final NBA senior citizen, founded in 1946, we have the Philadelphia
My
76ers.
team.
Back then, they were called the Syracuse Nationals, and in Syracuse, they won the 1955 NBA championship. In 1963, 1 year after the Warriors moved from Philadelphia to San Francisco, new owners relocated the franchise to Philly, feeling that it was a much bigger market than Syracuse. They then organized a public contest for the name of the new franchise, settling on the 76ers, representing the signing of the United States Declaration of Independence, which was signed in Philadelphia in 1776. The 8
I didn't know
forefathers
that.
of the NBA
We didn't learn
competed in
stuff
the
like that
league
at
for
school.
more than a decade,
'Cause
until
why would
1961,
we
when the
learn
NBA
about
introduced their
American
first
history?
expansion team. They were called the Chicago Packers, and the nickname was a reference to Chicago's
I guess, okay,
meatpacking
so this is
industry.
gonna be the
But
Bulls.
just 1 year later, they renamed the franchise to Chicago Zephyrs. Until the next year, they changed the name again. The Zephyrs relocated to Baltimore in 1963,
Okay.
rebranding themselves as the Bullets in tribute to the former BAA League's Baltimore
Okay.
Bullets. In 1973, the franchise moved to DC and became the Capitol Bullets, and then finally the Washington Bullets. By the early
the
1990s,
Bullets then the
team owner Abe
Wizards?
Pollin wanted to dissociate the team's name from gun violence. So after holding a renaming contest, Pollin rejected the names Sea Dogs, Dragons, Stallions, and Express before finally accepting the name Wizards. And for all you bracket wizards
Okay.
out there, tournament time is finally here. So fill out your brackets and bet on who you think will rise to the top with the sponsor of this video, DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new
I
customers
appreciate your
can bet
video
$5
massively,
top there.
but-
Use your $150 buying multiple bets together. And if sports betting is
I
not
ain't
yet
getting
available
paid,
in your
but if
state,
he's
don't
got a
worry.
code
You
in
can
it,
still join in on all the fun
use
with
his
DraftKings
code.
Daily Fantasy
But,
and have the shot to win cash prizes. So
I ain't getting
download the
paid,
DraftKings
so,
Sportsbook app
we don't
now.
pay the full
New
out.
customers use promo code NONSTOP
Use
and bet
NONSTOP's
just
code, though, if you
$5
wanna
on
bet your
any
money
wager
away.
and get
You go
$150
for
in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code NONSTOP only at
Oh, fuck
DraftKings
me, hurry
Sportsbook.
up.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And always remember to gamble responsibly. And even though their original NBA franchise
Chicago
collapsed
style.
and the
Right.
second
This
one
is the
relocated
Bulls.
to Baltimore, the third time was the charm for the city of Chicago. The founder of the team, Dick Klein, was a former basketball player and general manager. But when Chicago was granted an expansion team in 1966, he couldn't think of a suitable name. He contemplated naming the franchise Matadors
Excuse me.
or Toreadors until his son said, "That's a bunch of bull." And that's how the Bulls got their name. Just a year after the Bulls entered the NBA, another future NBA champion joined. It was the San Diego Rockets, who got their name from a public poll in San Diego,
San Diego
and the fans
Rockets. Who
chose
could
the
that
name
be?
because of the space industry in their city. When the Rockets relocated to Houston in
Rockets.
1971, they had no reason to change the team name, since the NASA Space Center is located in Houston. And that same year, in
There we go, that makes
1967, another basketball franchise was founded in New Jersey, called the Americans, but they played in the ABA. 1 year later, they relocated to
I
Long
can't think
Island,
who this
and
could be.
because New York already housed the Jets and the Mets, the team owners cleverly decided to rename the team the Nets.
Ah,
In
the Brooklyn
1976, the Nets returned to New Jersey, where they would play until 2012, before Jay-Z and Mikhail Prokhorov moved the team to Brooklyn. Next up, we have a city that most recently
Brooklyn?
lost
Is
its
that in New
NBA
York?
franchise, and we dearly hope they get it back again. It's the Seattle Supersonics, who got named after the Supersonic
I
Transport
don't know,
Project
their
due to
jerseys
the
are the
city's
coolest.
ties with the aviation industry. And as you probably know, in 2008, the Sonics relocated to Oklahoma City.
They will be in Oklahoma City next season, playing their games.
Did they
Where the
change
fans
the name?
chose the
Shirley?
name Thunder
Oklahoma City
instead of the
Thunder.
other options, such as Renegades, Twisters, and Barons.
You went
Just
right
like
with
Seattle, Milwaukee lost their original franchise when the Hawks moved to St. Louis. But after 13 years without the NBA, in 1968, Milwaukee was awarded with an expansion team. Like most other newcomers, the owners organized a public poll, and the most popular entry was the name Robins. The name Skunks was in second place, but the owners didn't like those names, and they overruled the public vote, deciding to call themselves the Bucks, which was really a blessing. Just imagine if Giannis had to say, "I'm glad to be part of the Skunks." And that same season, on the other side of the country, another city got their franchise. Also, like Milwaukee, the citizens of Phoenix proposed some terrible names for their new team. Some decent options included the Scorpions, Rattlers, and Thunderbirds, but there were also horrible submissions, such as Sunlovers, White-Winged Doves, and Cactus Giants. Unable to choose a name from the public, a young 28-year-old general manager by the name of Jerry Colangelo took the decision into his own hands, naming the team Phoenix Suns. And if there was ever a good time to form an NBA team, it was in 1970, when 3 new cities got an NBA franchise. Cleveland could have been known as the Jays, Towers, Presidents, and Foresters before they ultimately decided to call themselves the Cavaliers, because they felt the Cavalier name represented the fighting spirit of the Ohio natives. Then there was Portland, where the general public leaned towards the name Pioneers. But since there was already a college team in Oregon named the Pioneers, the ownership chose the name that came second in the polls, the Trailblazers. Then we have the Clippers,
They have
who were
my
first
favorite
founded
logo,
as the Buffalo Braves.
Trailblazers.
In 1976, the Braves had 3 future MVPs on the roster.
That sounds
but
more
due
like a
to money
baseball
problems,
team.
they were forced
I know
to
there's
trade
an
them
Atlanta
all,
Braves,
and
but you
then
know what I mean.
sell the team to San Diego, where the franchise was renamed the Clippers, after the type of 19th century ship that was commonly used in the San Diego Bay. But just like the first time, it wouldn't take long before the city of San Diego lost their NBA team. The Rockets relocated from San Diego after 4 years, and the Clippers moved to Los Angeles in 6. After new owner Donald Sterling bought the team in 1981, promising that he'd never move the team.
I'm comfortable here and I'm happy here, and I just want to stay here in San Diego.
It took him just 3 years to break that promise, establishing very early that he would become arguably the worst owner in NBA history. By the 1974-75 NBA season, the league had 18 teams, with the newest addition being New Orleans. Some options for the team name included the Crescents, Pilots, Deltas, Cajuns, and Dukes, but ultimately, they chose the most suitable name for their city, Jazz, since the music genre was invented in New Orleans. However, just after the Jazz posted the worst record in the league during the 1979 season, the ownership decided to relocate the team to Salt Lake City, where they never bothered to create a new identity for their team. And arguably one of the most important years in NBA history was 1976, because the NBA League merged with the ABA and agreed to accept 4 of the remaining 6 ABA teams: the Denver Nuggets, Indiana Pacers, New York Nets, and San Antonio Spurs. The Nuggets were originally called the Rockets, but since Houston had the same name, the newcomers were forced to make the change. After a naming contest, the teams settled on Nuggets, as a reference to the Colorado Gold Rush in the 1850s. The Pacers got their name after pace cars from the Indy 500, and also because pacer was a type of harness in horse racing, another big part of Indiana's rich racing history. And then there were the Spurs, who were just a 3-year-old franchise originally founded as the Dallas Chaparrals, and then in 1973 relocated to San Antonio. Like most of the other teams, the ownership organized public voting for the name, and they almost named themselves Aztecs before they ultimately opted for the Spurs, a very suitable name for a team in Texas. Then, 4 years later, the Lone Star State got its 3rd NBA franchise. After the Rockets and the Spurs, the Dallas Mavericks joined the league, and they got their name after a local radio contest. The name Mavericks won with 41 votes, in front of other options such as Wranglers and Express. By 1988, the NBA had 24 franchises, and then in the next 2 seasons, another expansion gave birth to 4 more teams. Miami organized a public poll for their name that yielded many unusual suggestions. The choices included the Floridians, the Sharks, Miami Beaches, the Barracudas, and the Tornadoes. One entry included the name Miami Suntans, which would have been hilarious, but they ultimately opted to be the Miami Heat. A year later, the neighboring city of Orlando also got a franchise, and they also had the choice to become the Floridians, but they opted for the name Magic because of their biggest tourist attraction, Disney World. Other options included Aquaman, Juice, and Astronauts, likely due to the vicinity of Cape Canaveral, which is 50 miles east of Orlando. And in the much colder part of the country, another franchise
Who
was
were
born.
the Pelicans?
And just like their Florida colleagues, the owners in
That's gonna
Minnesota
bug me.
organized a public contest, where the most popular entry was the Blizzard. However,
They're
the
the
ownership
Hornets.
didn't like the Blizzard or the Polars, and they ultimately got known as the Timberwolves, because Minnesota
Were they
was
the
one of the
ones?
only areas in the U.S. with free-roaming packs of Timberwolves. Dangerous Animals also happened to be the choice for the name of the next two expansion franchises.
Grizzlies were in
1995, the
Vancouver.
National Basketball Association decided to become binational and expand its business to Canada. Vancouver and Toronto joined the league, and Vancouver was first supposed to be the Mounties. However, after protests from the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, which were colloquially called the Mounties, the ownership opted to name their team after a local bear, the Grizzly. 6 years later,
That's
when the
quite cool,
franchise relocated to Memphis, they decided to keep the name. And the story of the Toronto Raptors is surreal, because it's not like anybody has seen a dinosaur in the past 65 million years. But everybody has seen Jurassic Park, which was an extremely popular movie in 1995. So they simply decided on the name Raptors,
Fair
which
enough.
was favored over the other two options, Dragons and Bobcats. Interestingly enough, the
Bobcats.
Bobcats and the Dragons were also the two favorites for the NBA franchise in Charlotte. In 1988, Charlotte originally became the Hornets, and everybody fell in love with their team colors. But in 2002, after the Hornets relocated to New Orleans, Charlotte got another franchise in 2004, and this time everybody hated their colors.
Isn't this the
They
team
chose
that
the name
Jordan
Bobcats
owns?
instead of Dragons, and some people believe that the owner Bob Johnson actually named the team after himself. However, after the Bobcats became the worst team in NBA history, and the name Hornets became available again, Charlotte returned
Hornets.
to their old name and colors, which was greatly appreciated by their fans. Then finally, we have the New Orleans Pelicans as the newest NBA team name. As we mentioned, New Orleans became the Jazz in the 1970s, and then the Hornets in 2002. But after Tom Benson purchased the team in 2012, he wanted a new team name and identity, ultimately deciding to call his franchise the Pelicans, per Louisiana's state bird. If you want to find out more interesting NBA facts,
So the only thing I know about the Pelicans is that's where Zion Williamson plays. I think he's still there. I don't know. I have a video I'm planning on recording about him coming out. Again, interesting to see where this team's gone. I was trying to guess about where we got to, but Chicago threw me off a few times. They had a few failed teams before the Bulls came along. Couldn't think of the word then. Look, as always, let me know what you think of that down below, and of course, way down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, put a goat in the go chain. Peace.